Welcome back in, Sons of the Shoe. Final segment as we go with a little fun thing we like to call 4 Down Territory to get us out of here. It's 4 topics. As we try to get out of here on a high, we get 4 opportunities here to talk about 4 different things. And I want to start with a topic that this might honestly be one of the best topics, not only that we've ever talked about on the show, but just ever. I mean, ever in college football. Like, who doesn't love a topic like this, which is Pitbull. I talked about it with Alec a little bit earlier in the show. Pitbull has bought the naming rights to FIU's football stadium. Now, this deal that he has comes with the following things. He pays $1.2 million per year for 5 years, according to the documents tied to the vote. The rapper, singer, and businessman, whose name is Armando Christian Perez, blah, 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 nod to Miami. Okay. For me, I thought this had the details a little higher up in it. Okay, here we go. As part of the deal, according to the FIU board, Pitbull will create an anthem for FIU, post about the school on social media 12 times a year, and appear at one of the athletic fundraising events per year throughout the term of the agreement. Pitbull will get use of the stadium 10 days per year throughout the term of the deal, and the vodka company he owns will be the preferred brand distributed in the stadium. There's also perks like 2 reserved suites for all home football games. Now, this is, I think, a fascinating litmus test in the NIL era and the era where you're trying to raise money doing whatever, and not having brand names on a stadium, but a person's name and an artist, a celebrity, their name goes on there, and then you tap into their resources and what they bring. Like, this is awesome. I think this is a genius idea for a school like FIU. I mean, we've been spending all week talking about this topic. FIU's maybe never been talked about more in their lives, except for when they didn't make a run of the Final Four a couple years ago. So maybe then that's it. Or they made a deep run in March Madness, whenever it was. But yeah, like this is they are on the map now because of this, and people are going to talk about it. But what I want to know from you guys at the 92 to Defend YouTube channel, you can hit me up on X as well at @Spencito_, as you see at the bottom of the screen there. If you could have any artist name plastered on Ohio Stadium, any artist, who would it be? Because, like, first of all, FIU missed an opportunity here because they could have done like Mr. Worldwide Stadium instead. Like, that would have been funny. Just Mr. Worldwide, as people always says, whatever it could be. But I like the idea of the nickname on there instead. But regardless, I see he has ties to the Miami area. So it makes sense that he's on like a Florida school's stadium. That's why I kind of leaned into the idea that it has to be like a local, some sort of local group or celebrity, right? Like, it has to be somebody who is notable in Ohio to really draw up the interest that you're looking for, right? So I don't know, like Rascal Flatts is from Columbus, but I feel like people are, I don't know, maybe not annoyed is the right word by Rascal Flatts, but I think people are like hit or miss on Rascal Flatts. Am I reading that correctly, or does everybody consensually love Rascal Flatts? I mean, here in Cleveland, where Nick and I are from, Kid Cudi's obviously a big deal. I think Kid Cudi on the stadium would be awesome, and he could basically have like a residency in Columbus and do shows there for over the course of 5 years, and I would love every second of that. I think that'd be cool. What else? Who else? I mean, obviously, if you could land like the big fish, which is Taylor Swift, that would be fantastic. If you could guarantee she does concerts in your stadium for 5 years, I mean, that's the economy you're looking for if you do if you do a venture like this, if you're Ohio State or some other school, because you know that she's going to bring in tons of money for you. And like, even if she's paying just a small amount to be, or, a couple million to be on the stadium's name, the economy boom that she just brings with you to the city that you're in is astronomical. Now, she doesn't need that. She is fine on her own. So it's more like a we need you more than you need us type thing. So maybe you let her put her name on the stadium for like $1. We just be like, hey, just to sign the paperwork, we're just going to make you pay $1. But yeah, we want you to come all the time and do shows, and we'll give you a suite. But she has no connections to Ohio State, so I doubt that's going to happen. And she's from Philly. So yeah, I'll say this, not an artist, but one of the names that makes the most sense to me would be LeBron. Like LeBron James on there. He's always had this affinity for Ohio State, had this affinity for Columbus. It seems fitting. They could make a deal with, like, I'm sure they already have a deal with Nike, but like, his gear, his logo on all kinds of stuff. He could use the stadium for some of his events that he does, or things that he, business ventures he wants to explore, or maybe shoot movies there, whatever it could be. He could have a suite. It'd be the perfect setup. So I kind of like the idea of LeBron's name. But if you had to put an artist, any artist, on the name of Ohio Stadium, and this is, again, timely because Ross Bjork's talking about maybe selling the naming rights to the stadium, who would it be? I'll also say this real quick. Dangerous territory. It's one thing to have like a company's name on your stadium, and that can be dicey too if the company dabbles in some questionable things. Like here in Cleveland, you have First Energy Stadium, which is where the Browns used to play, and then First Energy got tied in with Governor DeWine and some people voting yes on some things, and helping get them out of some financial issues. And it didn't end up looking very good in the end. So then they took the name off the stadium. But I digress. But with people, it's even worse. People, there's like no barrier there's no barrier where you can kind of say like, or there's no degree of separation, right? You can't be like, well, we don't, subscribe to that company's values or what these people were doing. They just pay to have their name on the stadium. So we'll just take it off. With a person, it's like, nope, you're kind of invested in that person and letting them invest in you when they're showing up, doing concerts, all that. So it's an interesting game to play. It can be a risky thing, but I think it's still kind of a cool concept. So if you could pick any artist to have their name on Ohio Stadium, who would it be? I something about country artists are screaming out to me. I don't know why. There might be some good ones that would make sense. That would be cool. But again, I don't know that any of the big country artists are from Ohio. All right, we spent a lot of time on topic number 1. We go to topic number 2, which is Wil Howard this week throughout the week of practice, mentioned that he has slimmed down over 20 or about 20 pounds from what he weighed when he checked into camp. He was like 250 down to about 230 now. And what that, how Chip Kelly really kind of emphasized that as something that he should be trying to do. I think this is good news, especially as a quarterback. I mean, we're hearing in the NFL about Lamar Jackson slimming down and trying to be like quicker and more agile. This is what you want when you have a running quarterback. So to hear him say that, I thought was interesting. And I think it's a big deal and notable in terms of this offense, what he can do, how athletic he's going to be, and how athletic he's going to look. And so, yes, I liked hearing that, and I think it means good things for this offense moving forward into camp and the season. And yeah, like it's a slim down Wil Howard is a good thing, I think, for Ohio State. Third down, we go to third down, and we'll stay with Wil Howard at third down because he also had a pretty interesting quote when he was asked about what it's, just the difference between K-State and OSU, and his comments were basically that he doesn't feel like he has to be the guy. And I find that interesting because we all look to the quarterback and say, listen, in crunch time, it is up to the quarterback to make those plays. And that still is true. He can say that, but at the same time, like in 2 minutes to go in a game, driving down the field, you need to score. We're all going to look at Wil Howard as the guy that's supposed to lead that. But that is alleviated when you have the talent that Ohio State has. You have a Quinshon Judkins lining up behind you or next to you. You have a Travion Henderson, same thing. You have Jeremiah Smith running downfield. He's going to make some great catches for you. You have Emeka Ibuka. Like, you have so many different options that it makes your life easier, and that pressure is kind of taken off, which is why it's so crazy that Kyle McCord was still as bad at times as he looked when he had all that talent around him, which is how we know he was bad. And then he still ended up coming up short in those moments because obviously more so of him, because of himself than it was of anybody else. Because Marvin Harrison Jr. was brilliant for him this year, and others were great as well. But Wil Howard, I think, has a chance to like really maximize that talent and equal, or maybe not equal all of them, because I don't think he's a CJ Stroud. I don't think he's that talent. But they're going to help him raise his game, and I think he already is coming in better than the previous quarterback they had. And that's a great starting point. And he's right in some capacity. Like, it still is going to be on you. I don't like that it's like, you don't have to be the guy. You still got to be the guy in some capacity because you got to get the ball to guys. You got to be composed. You got to lead these drives. But in the same vein, I get what he's saying because yeah, like you have other guys around you who will meet you in the moment and help you get over that hump and get you to, help you earn the win that you're trying to win or that you're trying to get. So I think his point is pretty sound there, while also admitting or acknowledging that it still is always going to be on the quarterback, and that's how football works. And if he comes up short in those moments, he's going to be the first guy we're blaming, not necessarily Jeremiah Smith or Travion Henderson. Fourth down. Final one to get us out of here. The coaches poll released this week, and the rankings have Georgia as number 1, which I think makes a lot of sense. Ohio State, number 2. They got 7 first-place votes. Georgia got 46 first-place votes. So there you go. Oregon, number 3. Your other Big Ten teams in the top 10. Michigan is 8. They're reigning champs. Penn State is 9. Maybe future Big Ten team, Florida State is 10, but that rounds things out. The teams in the middle, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame. I think this is fair. I don't know that anybody should read into the coaches poll that much. It's a preseason poll, and we know this stuff is going to change. But I'm okay with Ohio State being second to Georgia, and I think most of the rest of these teams make sense. I am curious though, like which of the Big Ten teams I just gave you in the top 10, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, which one do you think has the chance to fall out of the top 10 faster? I think that's a pretty good question. And I honestly think the answer might be Michigan, because week 2, they play Texas. And I know Texas is also in the top 10, but depending on what other teams are doing and other upsets that you might see play out there, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up actually being Michigan. And I'm trying to check here real quick. Yeah, because Penn State, unless they lose to West Virginia week 1, their next 2 games are Bowling Green and Kent State, and they have a bye in the middle. I think they're going to be safe, but I think it's between those 2 teams in terms of the one that falls out of the top 10 first, but probably more so Michigan. And we're all waiting with bated breath to see if Michigan can what Michigan's going to look like after winning the national championship and losing their entire roster to the NFL. I'm being obviously hyperbolic there. They didn't lose their entire roster, but we know they lost a lot of guys. Anywho, that's going to do it. Another episode of Sons of the Shoe in the books. I got to give a big shout out and a big thanks to Alec Dietz, new friend of the show who joined us in the first segment. And we appreciated all his insight into Oregon, the potential for this Ohio State-Oregon matchup to become a rivalry of the future in the Big Ten. And I thought he had some really good stuff to say. We'll connect with him during the season again, but I appreciate him jumping on with us this episode. And I appreciate you, as always, tuning in with us for Sons of the Shoe. Want to remind you one last time to like, follow, subscribe, comment to this podcast, on this podcast, wherever you get your podcast. The 92 to the Fan YouTube channel is where you can do the commenting most notably, but also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Odyssey app, which we like to pump, obviously, being an Odyssey affiliate. And did I mention Apple Podcasts? I did mention Apple Podcasts, but I'm mentioning it again. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll be back next week with another episode, and 1 week closer, mind you, to the start of the regular season in college football of Sons of the Shoe. Until then, take care, and as always, go Bucks.